What's up, everybody? I'm not even sure how I got this book. I was just going through my PDFs one day and it was there. But it's got some pretty interesting stories in it. The author claims that he found this old 17th century Portuguese manuscript where they went looking for the lost mines of Morabeca and found an ancient abandoned city. Now, this author has pretty extensive anthropological knowledge of North and South America. He lists all these different tribes and he knows what he's talking about there, but he says that this city had inscriptions that aren't like anything found anywhere in the Americas, really. Ultimately, he says that some of the characters are similar to Greek letters. Now, academia, of course, says that this manuscript is of a dubious nature, but hey, academia would never lie or suppress information on something that somebody's been saying for 50 years and it turns out to be wrong, right? Yeah, that never happens. This is in the Brazilian state of Bahia on the east coast of Brazil, and it's quite a ways away from the Amazon. But Francisco de Orellana had said about 200 years prior to that him and his expedition had gone down the Amazon and found on a 300-mile stretch almost continuous housing, and 20 miles of that was continuous housing. He also said that he came across albino Indians that were 2 heads taller than any of the Spanish, and that he fought a battle against some magic sorcerers. As to the authenticity of this, I have no idea, but if it is true, then it's a pretty extraordinary story. So let's get into it. In modern Brazil, and this is 1940s modern Brazil when he's writing this, I did not find any great enthusiasm about the mysteries of the remote past in a great land which some American observers believe is destined to outshadow Western Europe at the close of the Second World War. Now, that's a really big claim because he's saying this is potentially as populated as Europe was at the close of World War II. Now, he had written to a professor of economics and geography that holds a chair at a famous Brazilian university, but he doesn't name the person. But his reply was, all that we have here now are primitive Indians at the fishing and hunting stage. They live in huts and clearings in the jungle on the banks of the Amazon, but there are no monuments like those of Peru. Then he came across Senor Bernardo da Silva Ramos, who sold a collection of rare and ancient coins in order to raise funds to embark on travels all over North and South America. He became keenly interested in the ancient mysteries of Brazil, which has a literature of its own. Comparing ancient inscriptions in the lands of the, quote, old world with those he found in Central and South America, Senor Ramos filled large folios with inscriptions in Phoenician, Egyptian, and even Sumerian scripts and hieroglyphics. Senor Ramos points out that his Indian forefathers had many traditions about a very ancient culture and advanced civilization flourishing thousands of years ago to the north and west of the Central Highlands of Brazil. Now, in the archives of the Great Public Library of Rio, I have found a strange manuscript written in Portuguese and scarcely 200 years old, but bitten by the copum bug and badly mutilated in some passages. I stress the lack of culture of these men who were the well-known bandeiristas, land pirates of the 16th and 17th century, because they could and would not have invented the story they tell. Their one objective was the hunt for gold and virgin mines of silver. And yeah, if there's one thing the Spanish definitely were not interested in, it was preserving ancient cultures. Ask the Aztecs. Oh, wait, you can't. These bandeiristas reached places in the Brazilian Sertão 400 years ago that white men even today have not penetrated and returned alive to tell the tale. He then gives a really detailed account of locals that had grown rich off of a secret silver mine. So I'm just skipping to the end of that. He says that these mines became known as the lost silver mines of the Morabeca. In the next 150 years, many hardy Portuguese adventurers set out with the purpose of locating these mines, but the mystery of the lost mines remains unsolved. Now came the year 1743, when 5 Portuguese and 300 Indians set out on the trail for these lost mines of the Morabeca. They were well armed and intended to live on the country. No pack animals, or even the toughest and most leathery stomached of mules, could be taken into the jungle. This expedition was away for 10 long years when their memory had been forgotten by those in Rio and Bahia. When one day in the year 1753, an emaciated remnant of the band staggered in. They were almost dead with hunger, fatigue, and misery, reduced to rags and bones. The implications of his story were too amazing to have been realized or perceived by so unlettered a man, for only in recent years has it become known to historians and scholars. This manuscript eventually reached the viceroy in Rio de Janeiro. He clearly thought it held the secret of some great riches, for someone in the entourage hid it in the official archives and steadfastly denied that it had ever existed. In the autumn of 1939, I obtained a transcript of the document, thanks to the courtesy of Mr. W.C. Burdett, American Consul General in Rio. Thereafter, I spent many weeks translating from Portuguese and studying this amazing document, archiving stories of abandoned cities of unknown date and history. The manuscript is damaged in places, so it'll be spotty in some areas, worse than others. In America, ... we inland, ... next to the ... master of Can, Can, ... and his band, having for 10 years journeyed in the wilds to see if we could locate the famous silver mines of Great Morabeca. In the wilds of Brazil, we discovered a cordillera of mountains so high they drew near the ethereal region. Their luster excited our wonder, principally when the sun shining on them turned to fires the crystals of which the rocks were composed. It began to rain before we came near enough to take note of these crystalline marvels, and we saw above waters precipitated from the height. We determined to investigate these prodigious marvels without hindrance of forest or rivers that would make it difficult for us to cross. But when we walked round the foot of the cordillera, we found no way open or pass into the recesses. We grew weary and intended to retrace our steps the next day, when we saw a white deer, and by that accident, as it fled away, we discovered a road between two sierras. It appeared to have been made by man and not the work of nature. We spent a good 3 hours in ascent of that ancient road, being fascinated by the crystals as they blazed in many flashing colors from the rocks. On the summit of the pass through the mountain, we came to a halt. Thence, spread out before our eyes, we saw in the open plain a great city at a distance of about a league. We estimated, by the extent and size of it, that it must be some city of the court of Brazil. We at once descended the road towards the valley, but with great caution. There's some missing right here, but they mention smoke, and that being one of the evident signs. But I think he's saying that they didn't see any smoke there. 2 days we waited, wondering whether to send out scouts, in great doubt and confused perplexity of mind, trying to guess if the city had any people in it. But it became clear to us there were no inhabitants. An Indian determined to scout by way of precaution. He returned, amazing us by affirming that he had met no one, nor could discover footsteps or traces of any person whatever. We now decided to enter the place at daybreak. At our entry, we met no one to bar our way, and we encountered no other road except the one which led to this dead city. We entered under 3 arches of great height, the middle arch being the greatest, and the 2 of the sides being but small. Under the principal arch, we made out letters which we could not copy owing to their great height above the ground. Behind was a street as wide as 3 arches, with here and there houses of very large size, whose facade of sculpted stone, already blackened with age, alone, inscriptions, terraces open to the day without one tile, for the houses had, some of them, burnt floors, others large flagstones. We went into some of the houses, and in none did we find vestiges of furniture or movable objects by which we might guess at the sort of people who had dwelt therein. The houses were all dark in the interior, and hardly could the light of day penetrate. We went on into the strange city, and we came on a road of great length and a well set out plaza. In the middle of the plaza, a column of black stone of extraordinary grandeur, on whose summit was a statue of a man, not a god or demigod, with a hand on the left hip and right arm outstretched, pointing with the index finger to the North Pole. And at each corner of the plaza is an obelisk like those among the Romans, but now badly damaged and cleft as by thunderbolts. That's kind of interesting that he says a Roman obelisk instead of an Egyptian obelisk, but hey, look right at the middle of St. Peter's Square, I guess. At the right side of the plaza is a superb building, as it were the principal townhouse of some great lord of the land. There is a great hall at the entrance. Not all of us entered the ... missing a few lines, being so many that their blank mass of extraordinary blank, it was difficult for him to lift it. Above the principal portico of the street is a figure in half relief, cut out of the same stone and naked from the waist upwards, crowned with a laurel, representing a person of youthful years. On the left side of the plaza is another totally ruined building, and the vestiges remaining well showed that it was a temple, because of the still standing side of its magnificent facade and certain naves of stone standing entire. It covers much ground, and in the ruined halls are seen works of beauty, with other statues of portraits inlaid in the stone, with crosses of various shapes, curves, and many other figures that would take too long to describe here. Beyond this building, a great part of the city lies completely in ruins and buried under great masses of earth and frightful crevices in the ground. And in all this expanse of utter desolation, there is seen no grass, herb, tree, or plant produced by nature, but only mountainous heaps of stone, some raw, that is unworked, and others worked and carved. There's a little bit more missing here, and it finishes out by some earthquake. Opposite this plaza, there runs a very swift and most deep and wide river. The country beyond consists of very green and flourishing fields. 3 days we journeyed down the river, and we stumbled on a cataract of such roaring noise and commotion of foaming waters that we supposed the mouths of the much talked about Nile could not have made more trouble or booming. Afterwards, the river spread out so much it appears to be a great ocean. It is full of peninsulas covered with green grass, groves of trees, a little bit missing here, the variety of game, blank, created beings without hunters to hunt and chase them. On the eastern side of this cataract, we found various subterranean hollows and frightful holes, and made a trial of their depths with many ropes. But after many attempts, we were never able to plumb their depths. We found, besides certain broken stones and lying on the surface of the ground, bars of silver that may have been extracted from the mines abandoned at the time. Among these caverns, we saw some covered with great flagstone, and the following figures cut into it that suggest a great mystery. They are as follows. So they copied this down, and over the portico of the temple, we saw the following forms. Definitely doesn't look Mayan or Incan. I'm not sure if the Inca even had writing, but the Aztec and Maya had a glyph system. Distant a cannon shot from the abandoned city is a building like a country house with a frontage of 250 feet. It is approached by a great portico from which a stairway built with stones of various colors is seen to be leading into a great chamber, and from there led out 15 small rooms, each with a door communicating with the said great chamber. Each room has its fountain, and text missing, squared and fashioned by hand, overhung with the following characters. And then there's more inscriptions. Thence, leaving that marvel, we went down to the banks of the river to see whether we could find gold, and without difficulty we saw on the surface of the soil a fine trail promising great riches. We marveled that this place had been abandoned by those who had formerly inhabited it, for with all our careful investigations and great diligence, we had met no person who might tell us of this abandoned city, whose ruins, statues, and grandeur attest to its former populousness. At this place, the band separated, and one company, joined by others, journeyed forward, and after 9 days' long marching, we saw at a distance, on the bank of a great bay into which the river spread, a canoe with some white persons. They had long black hair, dressed like Europeans, blank, a gunshot fired as to signal blank, for they escaped. They had blank, shaggy and wild, blank, their hair is plaited and they wear clothes. Now, I'm assuming they turned out not to be European, because they're not mentioned again. One of our company found in the ruins of a house a piece of gold money of spherical shape, greater than our Brazilian coin of 6,400 reais. On one side was an image or figure of a kneeling youth, on the other a bow, a crown, and an arrow, of which coins we doubted not to have found many in the abandoned city, since it was overthrown by an earthquake which gave no time to take away precious objects. This news is sent to your honor from the interior of the province of Bahia, and assuring you that we shall give information to no person whatsoever, for we judge the villages are empty of people and boat owners. But I have given to your honor the mine we have discovered, reminded of the great deal that is owed to you. So there you have it, a bit of a Shangri-La tale, a Rivendell from Lord of the Rings. Like I said, I have no idea if it's true or not. I'll let you guys decide that, but it's definitely interesting, and it's not the first time that a Spanish conquistador type has said that there's a lot of people living away off the beaten path in Brazil. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you made it this far, you might as well check and see if you're subscribed and hit that like button, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Static out.